Hi, I'm Praveen Penmetsa. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Monarch Tractor, and I beat the often path by working on an electric smart tractor, one that makes our planet food ecosystem more sustainable and also the farmers more profitable.
Welcome back to the Beat the Often Path podcast. I'm your host, Ross Palmer. On this show, we showcase unusual success stories. Beat the Often Path is a play on words of off the beaten path. We showcase people who took the road less traveled and, beat it. They did better than the traditional trajectory. And my guest today, Praveen Penmetsa, did that for sure. He is the CEO of Monarch Tractor, all-electric driverless tractors that are going to revolutionize the way all commercial farming takes place. The importance of Praveen's work cannot be overstated, as the very future of humanity depends on developing smarter solutions to managing our farmland and defeating at least twice as many people as we have now. Praveen has gotten over $80 million in funding for his company so far, and his personal story is just so inspiring. Learn how he left India to come to the United States, where his talent for engineering led him to building a number of exciting products and projects, ultimately leading to him creating this game-changing new company that is truly going to change how farming takes place around the world forever. When you learn what these tractors can do, you'll be as blown away as I was. So here is Praveen Penmetsa of Monarch Tractor. Well, welcome, Praveen. Thank you so much for joining me. I cannot wait to hear your story.
Thanks for having me here, Ross.
It's very exciting. Very rare do I get to talk with somebody when I look at their website and it looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It's staring into the future to visit monarchtractor.com. These things are wild. It's an autonomous, self-driving, AI-powered tractor, battery-powered, hot swappable. You can swap the battery out, put in another one. The list of features is insane. So give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and how you came up with this idea, how you got to this very cool business idea.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ross. And again, right, sometimes I have to pinch myself as well. And I've been very fortunate in having an opportunity to work on everything from like electric cars, electric skateboards, all the way to electric autonomous aircraft. But one thing that, has kind of come to the realization is this tractor that we're working on is the most important project that I've ever worked on. And not only that, I believe that the tractor is actually the most important vehicle on the planet, right? It's the tractor that's allowed us to kind of grow our food ecosystem. So having started off in engineering as a mechanical engineer working on cool robots and electric cars back in the early 2000s, my journey has kind of taken me through meeting a lot of exciting people, companies, both startups as well as large companies. And then eventually I found my life coming back to a full circle because, I come from a long generation of rice farmers back in India who got the fast car bug and moved to America.
Yeah, I read that in your bio. You love fast cars, so he had to move to the United States.
Yeah. So, when I was growing up, there were no fast cars in India. So, to come back to that full circle and work with farmers again here is something that I think my dad is also very proud of, that I'm back in farming.
I believe that. And for those who are just joining in, at the beginning of this, before we got on the call, he said, sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I was just on my tractor in a vineyard in California. And that's the pinch himself moment on a Monday morning. That's pretty nice on a day like today. I'm a few hours south of you, I think, but it's still a pretty nice day.
Yeah, it's a fantastic day. First thing on a Monday morning to be on a vineyard in California. Running a tractor up and down, right, is the greatest thing ever.
So cool. And looking at the features of this tractor, again, it can sense things. It can do things that I didn't even believe were possible. You have a screenshot on your website that shows it identifying plants. I believe it's in a vineyard. And somehow it's able to tell which plant is which number. Is that automatic, or is there a chip in each plant? How does it know what's where?
And that's the beauty of our smart electric tractor, Ross, is the fact that because we have cameras on the tractor, and some of the smart features on the tractor, which allow us to remove the tractor driver from the seat and move him off the seat and away from the tractor and having him manage these things, they're all powered by cameras. So the same cameras that make the tractor autonomous are also used to kind of identify the plants, tag the plants, and then send that data back to the farmer. again, the key here is when you're farming acres or even hundreds of or thousands of acres, right? It's very hard to keep an eye on each and every plant, but that's what a farmer has to do. Because if you do not track it, it's going to start in one corner and then you're going to have a big problem very quickly. So I love this tractor and what we're doing with the data on it, because having spent a whole lifetime in technology, this one actually makes a lot of sense. I like this idea better than having cameras on your car and telling you when you should get your coffee or what other stuff you should buy, right?
Right.
Which for me always felt a little disingenuous. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like so many things, it's a combination of things we've seen before, but it's presenting them in a new light. It kind of looks like a drone a little bit. I think the product itself looks a bit like a drone, but bigger. And like you said, it's kind of like what we've come to expect from a Tesla or from other autonomous vehicles. But when you see it put together in that frame, it's really, really hard not to believe that this is the future of farming in general. So before we get into what is so great about this and why, are there people, do you think, that are going to be upset about technology like this? Age-old tractor drivers who say you're replacing jobs, that kind of thing. Are there people who are not so supportive of the shift to an autonomous tractor?
There's always going to be some kind of a challenge when we are talking about technology changes, right? So even simple things that we now take for granted when they first came out, whether it's a TV or even the radio or electric power, right? I can keep going back in time.
Of course.
They all have their share of naysayers at the beginning. But also we have to keep in mind, Ross, that the farmers have a big challenge these days. One pushback that we are not getting from is the farmers. We have gotten universal endorsement from everybody, from farm owners to the tractor drivers themselves. Because if you actually drove a tractor in these kind of fruits and vegetables kind of farms, you're exposed to the chemicals, you're exposed to the harsh weather. Like in California, in Central California, farmers, the tractor drivers have to be inside these hot cabs, working from very often like 4 a.m. to like all the way till sundown, and sometimes all night operations. So this is not the greatest job from that standpoint. That's also why they are unable to get tractor drivers who actually see a warehouse job or construction as being much more creative. So the farmers have been incredibly supportive. Tractor drivers and equipment operators in agriculture have been incredibly supportive. And that's what is basically powering the company at this point.
That's so cool, because it frees them up to focus on things that are more enjoyable to do, that matter more to them.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the average farm worker works around 50 to 55 hours. It's not a 40-hour job,
No.
Right? They're very often working night and day. And it's a very
more, to be honest,
challenging environment. Yeah. And that's the average, right?
That's
Which means there are people who are probably doing like more, for sure. So how do we give them some relief, and how do we kind of, use the technology so that they can focus their effort in certain parts of their farm instead of like doing these dull, dirty, dangerous jobs constantly?
And repetitive jobs. So many things that humans just don't enjoy doing. Yep. Machines have no problem with. And it can run all night if it needs to. Not an issue.
Exactly. Yep.
So getting things done. Yeah, I love the concept. And again, when you look at it, it's so clearly what the future will be. And that's why I think you've been able to raise tens of millions in funding, because I think, is it obvious to everybody that this is the future?
Yeah, until we actually showcased it and brought people over and showed them the tractor, and literally had some of the most influential people in the ag world kick the tires of our tractor. People did not believe it was possible, Ross. People even said even electric tractors were not possible, right? So the fact that we built a small, smart electric tractor that almost any farmer in the world can afford, right, and deploy that onto their farm was game-changing at that point. But the moment we did it, to answer your question, they all looked at it and immediately clicked, right? That's the reason why we have companies like Case New Holland, which is the world's second largest tractor company, has invested in us. We have Trimble. It's another big agriculture and construction data company. Is another big investor in us. We have tractor companies from Asia investing in us. So it's like the equipment people and the whole farm ecosystem has completely bought into this. And the moment they said it, they were like, yes, every tractor is going to look like this. And we have farmers investing in us. right? Not only do they say, hey, I want 5 of your tractors, they're like, hey, you guys are going to be the next big thing. How do I support you? So to answer your question, farmers see it, big ag equipment companies see it. And now I think because of what Monarch has showcased and what the team here has done, we have been able to change the mindset of some of these ag equipment companies, which is our biggest impact to date.
So unbelievably cool. I absolutely love that. And when you're bringing data and analytics into the farming process like this, what are some of the general advantages of aggregating that data and bringing it into farming in general?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ross. And it's something that, I often get from normal consumers, right? It's like, why do I care, about your tractor? And my key point to all of us, right, is we all should care about where our food comes from and how it's grown. These days, we care a lot about the delivery system, right? We're constantly checking on our DoorDashes and the other delivery apps that we have to say, where is this guy and how is he coming and when are we going to get the food? But we have no insight into how the food was actually grown on the farm. And let's think about this for a second, right? When there's an outbreak of salmonella or something, we take that whole produce from that region off our store shelves and dunk it, right? In this day and age, we have no idea what's happening with our food on the farm, and we have no idea how it got to that store shelf. So our tractor not only is going to make farmers more profitable, is going to allow them to be more sustainable, but is also that same cameras that we talked about are going to allow you and me to see how the food that we purchased was grown, throughout its cycle, not just once, right? It's not just a pretty picture of a farm that we are buying into. I can actually see what happened, when was it planted, what was sprayed on it, and when was it harvested, and that I think is key. And that data is also important because once we get that, Ross, right, we evaluate and we're willing to pay more for it, right? The reason we pay more for organic and at farmers markets is we want to hear the story of how the food was grown directly from the farmer, and our data will allow the farmer to do that.
Yeah, we absolutely do. I absolutely do. It matters to me. Do you think that in some way it will help farmers reduce the use of pesticides or other harmful parts of the process? Will it assist with that in any way?
Absolutely, right? And that's a big part of our sustainability advantages of our tractor. One of the reasons why the farmers are unable to practice some of these organic methods or regenerative farming methodologies is because each one of those requires even more effort in the farm. So, right now farmers are having to choose between going organic and regenerative or being sustainable. And most of us as consumers don't think about that as a hard choice, right? We think they both go together. They're not. Sure. From a farming perspective, if a farmer goes organic, he has to work his tractor more. He has to spray even more chemicals, the good kind, but he still has to do more out in the farm. So which means he's now less sustainable, right? He's put more inputs into the farm. If he goes on the sustainability path, now suddenly, right, he's having to compromise on how he farms. So for the first time with our tractor, the farmer does not have to make that hard choice. He can be organic and regenerative on the farm, and from an ecosystem standpoint, still be sustainable, because our smart electric tractor is going to tell him where the issues are, so he can be very pinpointed in his application of either fertilizer or pesticides. Instead of saying, well, I don't know what's happening in the farm, and I'm going to spray the whole thing because I don't want to lose my yield. Right? Our cameras and our data will pinpoint the hot spots so he or she can be targeted over there.
That almost sounds impossible to believe. Your tractor can say, plant vine 147 has an issue, go over to that vine, not 298, just 147.
And not just that, right? And again, farming is an ecosystem play, Ross. So we don't claim to have all the solutions for all the challenges that farmers face. But we see ourselves as a platform. So the fact that we have cameras, the fact that we can collect that data means that other people, experts, right? So for example, we have a partnership with UC Davis, which has a very big ag school here. The students there and the facility there, the faculty there can use the data and write applications that say, hey, based on this camera data from Monarch tractors, right? These are some of the things that we can do. So it allows not just us to provide all the solutions, but it allows farmers to have a wider reach of solutions and experts that can really help them. And at the end of the day, I think that's what is going to cause the massive change, because there's a bunch of things we can do, but we can't solve each and every challenge on the farmer's side. But we can really make it easy by being that platform.
Well, I'm very disappointed that you can't solve every problem. What are we even doing here, Praveen?
That's
You're
the magic,
our only
Ross.
hope. You're our only hope as a species. We need you to solve every problem. Obviously, that is a joke. Yeah, I can't.
No, but
I can't
Ross,
state
actually, that's a good point, right? I've grown up in India and farming, especially for farmers in Asia, Africa, right? Their challenges are even more extreme than what farmers face. And not too long ago, like a few months ago, I was in India, and it was amazing. I was going through this farmer's market at night, so it only crops up for a few hours. And there's this small farmer. He just had like 2 bowls of fruit there, right? And he had a small tag up on top with a QR code on it for payment. And that whole market was like that, right? That's a great example of how technology is touching the smallest of farmers, is allowing them to be more efficient, right? He now does not have to deal with figuring out the cash side and all of this other stuff that happens with it, right? It's a one QR code. He has a small piece of paper, he sticks it there, and boom, right? He now has access to that marketplace. The communication tools means that the farmer can now directly go to the apartment complex where all the people are, right? Let them know on a group chat that he's going to be there every Thursday evening. And now suddenly he can sell his produce directly to the consumer instead of to 3 other middlemen. So technology platforms are immensely powerful, and we see our tractor as one of those platforms that is going to help the farmer and help the consumer and provide benefits for both. So that's our vision, and I'm super excited about what's possible, but it's going to take all of us working towards it.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you have these at the ready, but can you give me a barrage of stats? I know they're on your website, but what are some of the stats you can give us off the top of your head? CO2 saved, fuel saved, anything like that? Blind us with science for a second here.
Oh, it's all about numbers, right, Ross? So,
always.
Yeah, and farmers are very deliberate about their purchases. So here I go, right? One tractor is equal to 14 cars worth of emissions. So something for all of us to think about, right? If you deploy one Monarch electric tractor, it's equal to removing 14 compact cars worth of emissions from the road. Gigantic number. Our tractor can save in California, right, roughly $3,000 to $5,000 just in diesel savings today, right? And diesel prices have spiked by like 60% in the last 6 months. Huge number of savings. Imagine a tractor that saves you, $3,000 to $5,000 every year. Mind blowing. So here's another stat, right? Is our tractor can work for like a full day of operations. That's like 9 hours, right? Without needing to recharge for like most farm operations. Here's another fantastic stat. You can swap out our very big battery on our tractor. A single person can, even you, in under even 10 minutes.
That's a great qualifier.
Well, I didn't see any tool
very easy for a normal person, but even I can do it.
I didn't see your tool belt on, Ross, so I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at these hands. Not a day of hard work in their life.
So let me qualify it, right? Even people like you and me can swap out a battery on our tractor in under 10 minutes using our battery swap card, just like your power tool, right? So swap the battery, plug the next one in, on you go, right? So hugely, immensely powerful there. Our tractor, again, right, collects 360-degree view of data as we go through the farm. And all of that data is given back to the farmer to make them more efficient. So the stat that you're looking for here is one tractor driver can operate up to 6 to 7 of our tractors at a time. So they can do more, which means now they can go organic, they can go regenerative and really fill that gap that we talked about at the beginning. So there's some fun stats to start off with.
Those are great. And of course, if it's running out of juice, it'll just come back and probably charge itself. It'll go back to a hub and beep, plug it in like a robot vacuum should do, but never does in reality.
Not today, but that's one of the things is our tractor will alert you when it's got low power, and it'll come back to the barn and you can just plug it in and get it started again.
Got it.
Or use our swap card to take the cart out there and while stop the tractor for 10 minutes, swap the battery and keep it running out there. So
unbelievable. Now, there's a few things we want to get into. So the wildfires, California specific issues, the drought of California. I want to get your thoughts on how that's all connected to these larger issues. I shared this in another episode that we recorded, but I read a stat recently that for a brief moment in time, California was 100% powered by renewable energy. For an hour or a couple minutes a few weeks ago or a month ago, there was a tiny slice of time where all of the energy needs of the entire state of California were met by renewable sources. Do you think that's something that's going to happen more and more? Is energy not so much a concern of ours these days compared to other resources?
Yeah, definitely, right. In my early days of my as an engineer, this was in the early 2000s, right? Energy independence was a big deal. In 2005 and 2008, energy security was a big deal. Like, can we actually power not just our cars, but all of this other equipment? And do we have that security where we're not dependent upon other countries, right? And we have made huge strides towards that as a nation here, Ross. So similarly, I think what we should also be talking about now, I don't want to change the topic, but we should also be talking about food security.
Absolutely.
Right. And we should make it a top and center topic and really talk about how can we as a nation be food secure. And for that to happen, we need to support our farmers. Again, a farmer buys an electric tractor and he gets $0 from the federal government, right? If you or I buy a Tesla, we get $7,500, right? Maybe not a Tesla anymore, but if you buy an electric car, you get $7,500 of support from the federal government. So we need to really, as a society, have a conversation about food security and move that. And food security and energy security are, as you're talking about it, right, are linked. The fact that we have done a lot of work on the energy security side, I think really gives us a platform to be now start to work on food security.
To connect those two things. It's because it's all connected. It's all related.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everything is connected.
Yeah. So to your point, right, you brought up a couple of good points. Number one, I'm not sure how much of your audience might know this, but due to the wildfire risk that California farms face and California faces, very often, the farmers lose access to their power. Like whenever there's bad conditions or hot conditions and windy conditions, the utilities from a safety standpoint have to turn off the power. What do farmers do when your power is gone? You can't stop watering your plants, right? You can't stop operations on your farm. And produce has a time element to it, right? If you stop an operation, or you can't wait forever, right? You have a fixed amount of seasonality and a fixed amount of time to get your operations done on a farm. So we have to provide some support to our farmers. So farmers for the last 3 or 4 years have been buying these huge generators because they see that as the only option out. With our tractors, and we are happy to say that we have a grant from California Energy Commission, where we're going to talk about how a fleet of our tractors can power some of these farms and maybe even power the grid, right? So those are some of the things that we are working on. The second side is the water side is, again, connected. Right, how much power and water we use on our farms is linked to the amount of data that we have on where exactly and precisely do we need to apply our limited water resources. We need data for that. At a time when there's no labor on the farm, where are we going to get this data from? At a time when the farmers are constrained in terms of the amount of money that they have, are they going to buy satellite data and deploy drones to collect all this data? Or is it smarter to have a smart tractor that while it's doing other operations, is giving you that data? So the key here is, I think the electric smart tractor, I think, has a key role to play in not just the energy independent side of things, but also in allowing us to conserve our resources carefully. And I think now that the electric grid has been shored up to a certain extent, at least the power side, I think it's time to deploy more solar and deploy more Monarch-like tractors.
That makes so much sense. And that's a whole category that is maybe the most exciting thing about technology in general, is its ability to automate things and do things in a smarter way so that we allocate our resources better. Because it's widely established in my home garden, if I water during the middle of the day on the hottest day, I'm going to lose a lot of water. It's not very smart to do it that way. I could, but I'll lose more water. So using what we have in a smarter way is always going to be the right idea.
Yeah, exactly. And automating it and the data side provides us more flexibility, right? And more options. You're absolutely right.
Cool. How important is that to somebody for just being able to implement an idea like this in any field?
Yeah. I mean, having scientific curiosity, I think, is more important than the degree itself. But that being said, the degree gave me a foundation of at least being able to put things into perspective. Don't get me wrong, at that time, I was kind of wondering, what the hell am I going to do with all this? And I was hoping to apply it on some fast cars. But that's what made me like do my partial differential equations, right? I was like, maybe I can figure out how to make the aerodynamics of the car better, and then I can make this thing go faster. But it was that curiosity of how things work, I think, is more important. And especially when it comes to our food scene or the food ecosystem or ag and farming, it's very much a mindset. It's very much that curiosity of knowledge and that continuous learning mindset and continuous improvement mindset that's more important. The science side of it, I'm super happy to see that a lot more people are coming into STEM, the science and technology side of things. There was a time when, if you were super smart, they would say, go to Wall Street, and which I found like immensely one-dimensional. The fact that some of our smartest talent is now coming to technology is a very powerful force. Now I want the smartest talent to come and work on our food and farming challenges. And for that, you could have a degree that's great in engineering, great. You might have a science degree, even better, right? If you have a life sciences degree, there's a place for you in ag tech. I think there's a place for every skill set here. Even a finance degree, right? Or even if you're from Wall Street and if you're looking at a career change, ag fintech, I think, is going to have a huge impact on our food ecosystem as well. So the engineering degree is important, but I don't think it's an end-all be-all.
What if your only skill is being able to talk into a microphone? Is that valuable or just no?
Oh, that's actually one of the most valuable skill sets that we all need, Ross.
Oh, okay. All right.
We need the apostles to spread the message, right? We need people like you to highlight.
That's an endorsement now.
Yeah. We need people like you to highlight the opportunity. We need people like you to spread the message. So I think, like I said, some of the ag podcasts really helped me understand the challenges that some of the farmers in different parts of the world were facing. Yeah. So I was not kidding when I said there's a role for everybody. So maybe we can look at rebranding your podcast into some kind of an ag tech farming podcast next week.
I do, I am very, very interested in it. The thought had crossed my mind. I thought, well, this is very fascinating, and it is something that I will be happy to continue talking about. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly.
Because I love technology, but I love the positive side of technology. I think I always loved technology as a kid. But then you see The Matrix, and that was the first indication that, hey, maybe technology is not always going to be positive. And then I saw what Facebook did and what Mark Zuckerberg did, and that was the nail in the coffin. So that kind of made a lot of us feel that maybe this technology thing is not going to be that great. I remember when Mark Zuckerberg just straight out lied to all of us. It's like, Facebook is for college students. Only people with the college.edu address can do it. So people are posting pictures of themselves partying and all of that. And then the next week it says, hey, your mom joined Facebook. What? How? Oh, yeah, it's not for college kids anymore. We just opened that up. Yeah. You did? Huh? Oh, we're selling all of your data, by the way. All of those pictures that you thought were private, they're not private. They're all sold. It's out there forever. And then you say, that feels kind of bad. I wasn't super happy about that. But now we're maybe breaking through to another point where we say, okay, there are some real dangers of social media and the downside of technology, but still there are some real positive sides of technology, and that I do find to be endlessly fascinating. Every time technology solves a single problem, I find that to be endlessly fascinating, still to this day. Both
And
terrifying
absolutely,
and fascinating.
Russ, yeah. And if there's one field that needs a huge influx of the technology, right, I think it's the farming and ag tech side. So that this is one place where we can make a positive dent. And again, I'm glad that you brought up a couple of issues like data security, data privacy. Those are all things that we need to pay tremendous attention to, right? Like imagine if like we talked about food security, which means making sure that you have enough access to nutritional food. Imagine the food data security side of it. Right.
Yeah.
So those are all elements that we need to be very cognizant about these days. And we can't have one company own all the data about where our food is coming from and what's happening on the farming ecosystem, right? All the farmers and the consumers cannot be beholden to one data company that's owning every aspect of what you're about to buy at the grocery store, right?
No.
So those are all things that I think hopefully the world is a lot smarter and we will not allow that to happen, which is also why at Monarch, we believe in an open ecosystem. We encourage people to work on, hey, build an app and get access to our data and use that data for the benefit of either the farmer or the consumer. So we're not trying to lock the data in and monetize it, right, by ourselves. We don't want anybody to be beholden to us. We actually want to open it up around the world. We have a licensing program at Monarch, which some of the big tractor companies are now signing up for. And we're saying all of us should form an ecosystem here. And it can be one single company that dominates the landscape. So those are all good things that you talked about. I think I'm hoping that we learn from some of the technology missteps for the last decade or two, and we don't bring that into our food ecosystem. So
yeah, I agree. And sneaking it in seems to be key, because when you present these things as, like you said, a hard choice between A and B, it's tough. But when you tell a farmer, hey, would you rather be able to drive one tractor or 7 at the same time? Right. You sneak it in, and then suddenly you've reframed the question in a way that has a much more obvious answer. Whereas if you said electric or gas, then you bring in the whole gas lobby and all of these other forces. But if you can just sidestep that, the political hornet's nest, and just get to what really matters, you can make some change.
Exactly. How we frame it is totally important too, right? For the farmer. Hey, farmer, do you want to save money? Yes, no. It's an easy one. Hey, farmer, do you want to use less pesticides and fertilizers and all these things, right? And use more of the good kind? Because keep in mind, farming is a community-driven activity. If they're putting chemicals out there, guess who's getting exposed to it first? It's the farming communities, right? So they don't want to do this. Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, oh, I want to spray pesticides all day long, right?
Can't wait.
So so framing it properly and getting everybody to see that it's a win-win, I think is important, and that's what we try to do. So we don't frame it as just one or the other. So
absolutely. Well, we're approaching the end of our hour, so I've got the money question for you. The first question is, what is the most unusual piece of advice that you've ever received that you believe in?
Unusual. I think the craziest one is definitely that whatever you're thinking or whatever you think right, is definitely not it, and you got to go through those 20 questions to learn that. And a lot of it comes down to that framing, Ross. The incredible piece of advice that I got, which gave me a headache that first day when I talked to this person, was they said, everybody thinks of breakfast as breakfast, but what makes breakfast, right? Like, what defines that? Is there a certain way to think about it? I think what that framed it for me was, it's not just about what it is, like what is breakfast, like I can make an argument for almost anything, but how do we frame it for the population in such a way, and how do we frame it for each other in such a way that it's meaningful, is just as important as what it is. Right. The concept of breakfast is just as important as what you eat for breakfast. So it's a very unusual way of looking at it. And it gave me a headache that first day of like, why is this guy talking about breakfast when I'm trying to talk to him about electric tractors? Right. But he was trying to change my perspective on, you need to think about this as something else. Right. Don't try to frame it as an electric tractor versus a diesel tractor, right? It's something else. You need to figure out what that is. So
Wise words. That is a great, great one to wrap it up. I love that. Final word is to you in this episode, so the floor is yours. Anything you want to promote, anywhere you want to direct people's attention to, go ahead. Close us
again,
out.
we at Monarch Tractor. Check us out at monarchtractor.com. We're always looking for great talent to come and join our mission. So if you are even lightly curious about some of the things that Ross and I talked about today, check us out. Join the movement, right? Come and join the company if you can. Otherwise, even if you don't join Monarch Tractor, do pay more attention to our farmers' needs and see if you can join the ag tech scene. I'm telling you that for the next decade, ag farming is going to undergo a huge transformation, and you get to play a role in that. So I encourage everybody to come and join that movement in ag tech and food and farming. So again, Ross, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity and the stage.
No, thank you. The thanks are all due from me to you. I think your mission and product is just beyond belief cool. I cannot wait to see one of these things in person one of these days. I think it's just spectacular. And congratulations for doing this, and I support you.
Again, really thanks a lot, Ross. Yeah.
So with that, the official podcast is over.